Welcome to the Nourish podcast, a HOSA community awareness project focused on eating disorder recovery and mental well-being. I'm Angie Wang, and today I'm speaking with Daniel Schultz, a certified eating disorder dietitian who has dedicated his career to understanding the powerful link between our mental wellness and our relationship with food. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Angie.
I'm excited to dive in.
Me too.
To start, can you tell us about your role in eating disorder recovery and what drew you to this work?
Yeah, so as a certified eating disorder specialist, as a dietitian, I specifically work with all age ranges. So my youngest clients range from about age of 11 to 12 to all the way up to I've had older clients who are 60s or 70s. So, the role as a dietitian is to really focus on three things in recovery, right? It's nourishment, so nutrition, the way we move our body, so movement, and then body image, right? And now nutrition and movement is primarily when the dietitian is focusing on. Body image is both the dietitian and a therapist, right? Because we always want to couple recovery with someone who's knowledgeable about eating disorders as a therapist and then a dietitian as well. And then what drew me to this work, that's a long story short, what drew me to this work was I was in my own recovery. I have 14 years in recovery from an eating disorder right now. And there's some good days and still some bad days in there. Eating disorders don't discriminate at all, right? So what drew me to this work was I didn't know what else I wanted to do with my life. I thought this was my calling. I knew I wanted to get into dietetics, which is the study of nutrition, and to become a dietitian. I didn't know what I wanted to do with that until I was in my high school, and I unfortunately was in sports, and that led me into my eating disorder of anorexia. And then from there, I had my own team of therapists and dietitians to help me. After a while, it took me a while because I'll probably say this a few more times in the podcast, but we, as helpers, we can't want someone to recover, right? That person needs to want that, and they need to choose that. This is a life that you live in of recovery, just like with substance abuse. That's why substance abuse and eating disorders are so hand in hand. I mean, honestly, it's very interesting if you look at the research there. But overall, that is what got me into this field, and that's what, as a dietitian, you work on the nutrition, you work on the body image, you work on the movement pieces, and you kind of jump right in, right? You have to build that rapport with your clients. So it takes a few sessions of just getting to know each other, kind of what we're doing right now, talking, saying, hey, how's life? Tell me about what you like to do. Tell me about what you don't like to do. Tell me about when you first started realizing that your mom went on a diet, right? And how did that affect you, right? There's so many nuances that you have to kind of cover before you can actually jump into the work, because that real work, there's a lot of trauma involved. So, yeah.
Totally. Thank you for that introduction. What's one thing that you wish more people, especially high school and college students, understood about eating disorders?
I already kind of prefaced this in the first question, and you'll see me do that a lot. I talk myself around. So, I would say for high school and college students, okay, eating disorders do not discriminate. They do not care what color you are. They do not care what sexuality you are, what gender you are. They will come at you, and they have one goal, and it's to kill you. That's what eating disorders do. They kill people. They are the leading cause of death in the mental health field, behind opioids, but you can't really compare the two, because opioids, you take one bad pill or one bad whatever, and you can end up passing away. Eating disorders, you don't pass away from missing one meal. It's missing consecutive meals over years long that finally, can kill you, right? And I don't mean to sound so morbid, but this is what the younger crowds need to know, because I'm seeing younger and younger clients in my practices right now. I mean, I'm a nutrition director at a practice in Virginia. I'm based in Texas. And I also have a practice here in Texas. And in my Virginia practice, my caseload is of 13-year-olds right now, right? So high school, just getting into high school, maybe a little younger. And they need to understand that The eating disorders don't care if you have money. They don't care if you're popular. They want to seclude you. They want to isolate you. They want to get you alone. And that's where it starts to really change the neurons in your mind. So I want to just make sure everyone knows when they hear this is eating disorders, they do not care where you come from. They do not care what your past is. They do not care what you have in store for your future. They ultimately want to make you sick. They want to get you alone. And they want to end up making you pass away.
That's so important. I feel like a lot of people don't think about that.
Oh, they don't, Angie. And that's I think one of the really, I think in my own years, if I would have done this podcast like 2-3 years ago, I probably wouldn't have came at you like that. But now, after, 6 years in this field and seeing the things I've seen and having my own clients or my own friends, my own recovery pass away on me, I'm not really playing around with people's lives anymore. Like this disease, like I said, behind opioids is the number one killer in the mental health field. So it needs to be driven in that, again, men, women, people of color, people who are gay, people who are trans, they are all susceptible of getting an eating disorder. And when that happens and you don't have the support you need, that can be a combination that's really deadly.
Totally, 100%.
Yeah.
From your experience, what are some warning signs that someone might be struggling with an eating disorder?
Oh, yeah. So the list could go on and on, right? And if you want me to send you a detailed list, you just email me and I will send you a detailed list. But I'll give you some idea. So I kind of mentioned this in the previous question. Isolation is huge. Withdrawing from your normal social activities, your sporting events, your school extracurriculars, classes maybe, right? So the eating disorder, again, wants to lure you away so you can be in seclusion, so you can skip your meals, so you can binge and purge freely without anyone noticing, right? So it wants that exclusivity to you by yourself, right? So that's number one. When you see a friend or someone or yourself distancing yourself from family or friends, that's a red flag. Start looking into that. You don't need to go seek help right that second, but start looking into that. Start doing some internal finding of yourself and figuring out, is this normal, right? Let's see some other ones. Irritability, right? If your mood swings left and right, and people are like, hey, you've been really moody lately. What's going on? Well, we know that nutrition impacts your mood, right? We know nutrition impacts people who have depression, who have anxiety. We see that correlation very strongly. So, again, kind of thinking about this as a big whole and a big picture, right? We have to understand, though, that as humans, though, some people might just say, "Oh, I isolate," because I'm an introvert, right? That's a little bit different, right? We're talking about people who were like me, like the social butterfly of their high school, who then just withdrew and didn't speak to anyone or didn't talk to anyone, right? And that was a big red flag for some of my family members and my friends as well. So again, kind of just thinking along those lines. Some other warning signs, though, right? Some other warning signs I would say would be like the obsession, food thoughts all the time. Like if you're thinking about food all the time and worried about when your next meal is, or where you're going to eat your next meal, or who's going to be watching you eat your next meal, or where you're going to be to eat that meal, or what that meal may look like. Again, obsessions around food. If you're getting obsessed with your Apple Watch, right? A lot of us have Apple Watches tracking your calories, tracking your movement, right? Tracking your exercise, becoming obsessive with all of that. Those are some warning signs. I mean, there's tons more, right? And like I said, if you really wanted that, I can compile a list for you, of course. But again, those are some of the telltale warning signs. One, the biggest being that isolation or that depression or that withdrawal from just common life or common day activities, I would say.
Totally. Those are incredibly helpful. And that leads perfectly into our next question.
Yeah.
When someone does see those signs in a friend, what would the best way to step in be without harming their friends?
Yeah, this one, I don't know if anyone has the most perfect of answers ever, so I'm going to give that as a disclaimer. I kind of mentioned this to you earlier, Angie, that, right, you have to want to recover. That person or your friend has to want, or that family member or your spouse or your child, they have to want to recover. You can't force them. Now, some may say you can with a 12 or 13-year-old. I would say some of my parents who have brought their kids to me, their kids did not want to come see me, okay? They were like, I'm fine, right? Until they finally realize, whoa, what you're saying, Mr. Schultz or Dan, I have them call me whatever they want, it don't matter to me. They're like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense what you're saying now. And like, I do that, and I do see how that's actually not normal because no one else in my life does that, right? So it's about that education. But again, as a friend, what I would say, if one of my friends was going through it, I would ask them very gently. I would say, hey, you doing all right? You seem to be withdrawing lately. You seem to, I haven't seen you eat much lately. You doing okay? And if they say yes, you say, okay, well, I'm here to talk with you then. Or I'm here whenever you need to talk, right? And if they do confide in you, you support them. You do not judge them. You do not critique them. You do not tell them why they shouldn't do something. You, again, support them. You walk in this journey with them, and you try to get them the proper help, or you try to have them go through the proper channels of receiving help, right? And that may be a professor, right? That may be a teacher. That may be Googling eating disorder hotline on Google and seeing what comes up. You'll get a lot of stuff, and some of those will be phone numbers that you could text or call, just like a suicide hotline almost for eating disorders though, right? So again, you want to be respectful. You want to ask them, hey, how are you? It can be that simple. And then again, you want to walk in this journey with them. And when they're ready and they confide in you, that's when you can actually help them get the help they need, right? Otherwise, as a friend, if they don't want your help, you have to respect that. And you just, again, let them know that you'll be there whenever they're ready to talk. And it's hard because I've lost clients who are not ready to recover. And they're very sick. And it would be unethical of me to hold them hostage and be like, you have to come to sessions, right? If they're not ready, they're not ready. And who am I to tell them that they need to be ready? I'm not the judge of that, right? So I would say the most important thing is be respectful, come at it with open arms, and knowing that you don't know everything about eating disorders, because most people, it's very taboo still. It's becoming less taboo. Thank goodness for podcasts like this, or just it's coming up. People are starting to learn more about this because they're not going anywhere. Like I said, number one cause of death. I mean, millions and millions of people get them a year. So they're not going anywhere. So again, just be respectful, asking questions, trying to learn yourself, and then if they politely reject that help, accepting that. And still being there for them, but just accepting that they're not ready for that help.
Totally, 100%. Yeah. What advice would you give to a student who feels overwhelmed by academic or social pressure and notices it affecting their relationship with food or with their body?
Yeah, good question. So, we see a huge correlation between perfectionism and eating disorders, right? So, and there's something to be said about, we know that nutrition, specifically carbs, help fuel the brain, right? We need about 130 grams of carbohydrates per day just to allow your brain to do its daily functioning, right? It's thinking, it's whatever that magic thing does up there, right? So when we think about that, right, if we're not eating or our eating is becoming impacted by school, we can then think about our school is going to become impacted, and our grades will become impacted by not eating then, right? So it's a hand-in-hand thing. It's like a chicken or an egg, right? But again, that perfectionism of I need to get an A, or I need to spend all night thinking about this paper and writing my paper, even though they have 2 weeks to do it, right? And I know you know those people. You may even be one of them because I feel like all my college students are big time perfectionism. And one of the things I say is, I think perfect is a made up word, or I think perfect is meant to make us feel bad because I don't think anything can ever be perfect, right? Now, some would argue with me. That's okay. I'm fine with that. But to me, I tell my clients, I say, hey, I think perfect is a made up word. I think it's meant to make us feel bad. I don't think anyone can ever be perfect. And if you strive to continue to be perfect, what happens? You put everything else on the back burner, right? Your nutrition, your movement, right? And then you become obsessive with that perfectionism. And then what happens is you kind of become superstitious a little bit, right? So you start skipping breakfast a little bit more because you have more time to study, right? And you're getting good grades. Your body's an amazing thing. Your body can last, I think it's 3 weeks your body can last without any food. Water's a different story, but your body can handle it, right? So again, I think that's what plays a huge role. And what we need to understand is once you need to set breaks for yourself to have snacks, to make sure you hydrate, because hydration and eating are what going to fuel your academics and give you actually those good grades. So that's kind of where I lie in that question.
That's such an important perspective. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you.
What does recovery look like in your work, and what do you think people should know about the recovery process?
Ooh. Okay. I've gotten into some arguments with other people about this, but I'll bring it up. I think recovery is lifelong. My recovery, I'm 14 years in. Until the day I die, I think I'm going to have some demons that I battle. And I think that's true for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people would agree with me, but a lot of people also, like some therapists I'm thinking about right now, they believe you can become fully recovered, and to each their own, right, Angie? I'm not the eating disorder police. No. Now, I think it's very, very important. I should actually back up and say the reason I say that recovery is lifelong is because for me, I work on 3 things, right? I kind of mentioned those earlier. Nutrition, movement, body image. Okay. You need to eat every day. That's non-negotiable. God put food on this earth for us to eat. We eat every day, right? So food's always going to be part of your life. Movement. You're going to always move. You're going to have to get up out of bed. And when I say movement, everyone, I'm not talking about actual exercise. I just mean moving your body, whatever that means to you, right? So you walk to the mailbox, you walk to your classes, you get out of bed, you brush your teeth, right? So movement's always there. And then body image, you live in your body until the day you die, right? So I don't think it's fair for someone to be fully recovered because you have to work on these things every day. You have to choose to eat your meals every day. You have to choose to move or maybe not move every day. You have to choose to not criticize your body or criticize your body every day, right? And hey, sometimes I'm hard on my body. That's just, and I'm 14 years still doing this, and I do this for a career. And it still sometimes is hard. So recovery is not linear, Angie. Some people think it's just, okay, I'm sick, I'm going to go see a dietitian and a therapist, and I'm going to get better. The research out there suggests where we can get into that maintenance or that maintenance phase of recovery is 3 to 5 years, maybe 4 to 6 years now. That's a long time. And now, granted, they're not always going to be with me. They are going to be seeing a therapist for 6 years. So that's for sure. Everyone should probably see a therapist pretty regularly. But you don't need to see someone like me. I tend to work with clients for about 1 year to 2 years. And then I usually try to let them go be their free little birdies if we're in that maintenance phase. But again, going back to what does recovery look like? It's so dependent, right? Some person may fully want to recover, and some other people may just want to learn to live with their eating disorder so it doesn't kill them. And I've had some of those clients, right? And those clients, are more of the older population who have had their eating disorder for a long time. So, we're just making sure that I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but we're taking more of a harm reduction approach to those clients. So what's the least amount of harm I can do to this client that they still can engage in their behaviors but like it's going to allow them to live a more fulfilled life, right? And then the harm reduction comes from like it comes from like a public health perspective a little bit. But yeah, I have turned it into my own little thing with my eating disorder clients. But I would say long answer short would be recovery. There is no knowing how recovery is going to look for any individual person. I want to make it clear as well. Just because you come to me and you are underweight, and then you work with me and your team, and you get to a healthier weight, normal weight, whatever that means, that does not mean you're recovered. That's when the work can actually really get done, right? Because once you're not malnourished anymore in your mind, you can actually start doing the hard work. And that's when we figure out where the eating disorder started. I didn't start. What did you learn from it? So I would say that's how I'm going to answer that question.
That's so true. Yeah. What's one practical thing that a young person struggling right now can do today to start their healing journey?
What is one practical thing a young person struggling right now can do today to start their healing journey? Oh, okay. I think this goes back to some of the other things I said. I would believe that they have to acknowledge that that there's something wrong going on, that they're not living fulfilled life, because you really aren't living a fulfilled life when you are battling an eating disorder. I can't even tell you, I forgot like my whole I forget my whole sophomore year of high school because I was so malnourished the whole time. So again, acknowledgement. You have to just acknowledge that you could potentially be struggling with something there, right? And then ask for help. That's the practical thing. Ask for help. Go and do your own research. Ask for help. Call the National Eating Disorder Association, NEDA we call it, NEDA.org, NEDA.org. They have helplines there. They have people you can talk to. Now, I think they have changed. They have changed, though. Something, and it's like a robot now that talks, and I don't really like that, so I wouldn't recommend that, because I want you to talk to a real human, just because we're dealing with real lives here, and, I think it's important for that connection as well. But I think the most practical thing is the two things I said. You need to have acknowledgement that you're struggling, and then from there, you need to be able to ask for help. And that way, your friend can help you find your professor or teacher, and then that professor or teacher can get you in with the counseling center, and that counseling center can then refer you to a team of eating disorder people because they should have connections, right? And I also, full disclaimer, I also worked 3 years in higher ed. I was at the University of Texas at Dallas as their sole dietitian running their eating disorder programming and working with eating disorder students. So again, I've had students bring their friends right into my office. Luckily, I didn't have anyone else. And they just sat down and we talked about what's going on. And comes to find out they had issues with their food and nutrition. And it was from their eating disorder, which they didn't really even understand what it was. Some people can't even fathom what an eating disorder is. Right? So that's also where that acknowledgement and that understanding piece needs to come. And I think this is what we're doing too, though, to really help people understand that this is very, very common, right? So it shouldn't be taboo anymore.
Definitely. Yeah. What's one role that you think support systems play in recovery?
What role does self-compassion community support systems play in recovery? I think we have answered this, but I think on self-compassion, you need to have that, right? If you don't have self-compassion, you're not going to care to get better, right? So that self-compassion and community. So self-compassion, right? You need to be able to, again, have that acknowledgement of yourself and know that this is going to be a long journey and you have to be okay with that, right? I always tell my clients, you have to give yourself grace and patience. Because the eating disorders aren't logical, right? Because what's logical about telling yourself what's logical about starving yourself, right? There's nothing logical about that. However, in your mind, when you're that caught up in it because this is a mental health disease, right? I say disease because that gets people like, oh, a disease, right? Like, it is. It's a disease of the mind, mentally. Right? So it's going to not make sense. And that's where that grace and patience needs to be had, because sometimes people want to fight logic to unlogical things, and you can't do that. Sometimes you need to fight you need to fight the unlogical sense with unlogic, right? And it's funny to say that, and there's examples of that, but that's neither here or there right now. Community, though. Community is huge. Now, it's really hard to find community, though, right? Because we're dealing with mental health. And a lot of people don't like to talk about their mental health, right, Angie? So community, finding community, there's support groups out there. There's groups for people who have anorexia. There's groups for people who purge. There's groups for people who have binge eating disorder, right? So the community is also really important, but it might be hard to find that community right away, right? But ultimately, if you don't have grace, patience, self-compassion, if you don't have a community, and your treatment team is your community as well. I tell my clients all that. Most of my clients have my cell phone number in case they ever need to get a hold of me if they're going through something, right? I'm one of those. There's other people who won't give out their cell phone numbers as professionals. It doesn't bother me. But again, if you don't have these pillars, right, these foundations of that self-compassion, of patience for yourself, of grace for yourself, a community of loved ones that support you. Maybe they don't understand you, maybe understand it, but they support you, right? That's going to make your recovery journey a lot more smooth. It won't be peaches and cream, right? But it will be a lot smoother for you to handle with that.
Totally. Yeah. What gives you hope in this field, and why do you believe recovery is possible?
Okay, so I'll answer the latter part and get to the former part of the question. Recovery is possible because I'm living it. I'm doing it. If I can do it, and this is so cheesy and cliche, but if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I'm very stubborn. So I did not want help. My mom pretty much, just kind of fun backstory, my mom pretty much put me in the car and didn't really tell me what we were doing, and that's when I went to treatment, because I was so stubborn. I would never have done it. I would never have allowed it if I knew what she was doing. So again, recovery is possible because I have seen people recover. I have helped people recover. I have one story, this will probably stay with me for a long time, but a female came in wanting to get pregnant. Her eating disorder, her levels of pregnancy were not good. Her nutrition was not good. Nothing, it wasn't working. They were trying and they could not get it to work. They could not get it to stick, right, to have a baby. 5 to 6 months working with me, we got her levels back up. And I don't know what happened, but before we knew it, she was pregnant, and she was pregnant with twins, of all things, right? And I was pretty much there from before conception to conception to the birth to postpartum with this client, right? And that is recovery. She recovered all those stages and kept her recovery number one. You have to keep recovery up top. You cannot let it fall. And it's okay. I tell a lot of clients, recovery's like climbing Mount Everest. Eventually, I'm the one dragging your butt up the hill first, because you're not going to want to, so I'm going to help you. And then, eventually, I'm going to take a break because I'm tired. You're going to keep climbing up the hill in recovery because you've got to do it on your own. So at some point, I'm not going to be with you all at all times. I can't. That's just not part of my gig, right? But I'm like, if you slip, I will be there to grab you and throw you on the side of the hill with me. We'll take a break, and then we're going to go right back up together, right? So recovery is possible that way. Now, to go back to the former, what gives you hope in this field? I'm going to be honest with you. When I first started this gig about 6 years ago, I wasn't very hopeful at all. I didn't think society would understand. I didn't think society would grow. A lot of the research we still use is like on anorexic white women. That's not okay. Not okay at all. It's quite literally not okay. And most of our other research comes from like 1996, right? Like we don't have a lot of research now, though. know, over the last few years, there's been this uproar, and I'm loving it. There's more awareness. There's more conferences. There's more podcasts. There's more books. There's more everything eating disorders, I feel like. And I don't know if that's from COVID, and because we're getting a lot of clients from the COVID era, right? Because they're finally now realizing that COVID was not really good for a lot of people's mental health and their seclusion, right? Because a lot of people were alone too. So we're seeing a lot of kind of COVID folks coming into sessions now a lot more, and how and kind of. But again, I think with COVID though, we also have that awareness come more and more, and so we're finally making some moves. So I like that, and then also the APA, which is, oh gosh, I'm going to butcher this. I think it's the Association of Psychology, APA. Let me just so I don't butcher it for all of you. American Psychological Association. So the APA, they're the ones who do like the DSM-5. So that's all like your mental health illnesses, right? So the eating disorders are in the DSM-5. It's this big old technical book. And what we're finally doing is out to public forum now. So all your followers or viewers or whoever's out there who this is going to get sent to, or however this is distributed, there's 1 month of public forum. And we're actually asking people to go on there and say like yes to this, because we're trying to get rid of BMI from any like criteria for eating disorders, because we know that the BMI is not a determinant of health. The BMI was only done on white men back years ago, who ended up creating this scale of BMI was a statistician, not even a doctor or anything. And what do we think it had to do with? Money for insurance, right? Because if you say someone has a BMI over X, Y, and Z, you can get money for that, right? So, and also, what this prevents is insurance from denying you your care you need. Because I know so many people who have been denied higher level of care. Because there's 5 levels of care. I should kind of mention that quickly. I do outpatient, right? So I mostly see you 1 time a week for 1 hour, right? And maybe twice a week if needed, right? And then you have IOP, so I'm OP, outpatient, and then you have IOP, which is intensive outpatient. That's about 3 to 5 hours a week, 3 to 6, or maybe 3 to 5 days a week, 6 hours, right? And then you have PHP, which is partial hospitalization, and that means you go there 7 days a week for like all day long, 8 hours a day, but you go back home, you don't stay there. And then residential, which I also worked at when I was in Linden, Minnesota, I worked at the Emily program, which is a residential eating disorder facility. They will house you. You usually have anywhere between 8 to 16 beds, depending on if it's adolescent or adults. I worked with adults at the time. And I think we had 12 to 14 beds. I can't remember off the top of my head. But that's where people live. So you have a full-time staff. You have doctors, nurses, dietitians, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists. You have them all. And it's 24 hours a day, so you have staff 24/7 in that building. And then, so that was 4, and then the 5th one is hospitalization. That's where you go to the hospital, a specific hospital, and like pretty much just have to get your nutrition back up before then you get dropped down to residential, and then you go from residential to PHP to IOP to OP, right? And sometimes people make that jump from PHP to outpatient, and they'll see me. But usually, if they go to this hospital, if you start at tier 5, the hospitalization, you're usually going to go through all of them. You're going to get hospitalized, then you'll go to residential, then you'll go to PHP, but then you'll go to IOP, and then you'll go to OP. Now, again, people may go to residential, and insurance will be like, you're fine, when they're really not. And so they'll be there for 2 days, and then they're kicked out because insurance won't pay. And it's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So what BMI, by excluding the BMI, we're now looking at quality of life. And we know eating disorders diminish your quality of life. Doesn't matter if it's a binge eating disorder or it's an anorexia nervosa, right? We know that quality of life suffers, and that's what it's going to be graded on if this passes, which I think it will. So go and make your voice known.
That was amazing. Yeah. That's like such an important thing. Like I've never heard anyone say that before. That's just truly amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
If you could leave our listeners with one last message, especially those who might be struggling right now, what would it be?
You're not alone. I've done it. I've been through it. I've struggled with it. I've relapsed. Should just point it out, relapse is really, 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 really high in the eating disorders. I think it's over 88%. I think it's even higher in the 90s probably, if we really looked at the data, which we don't have much of. I made that clear earlier. So again, knowing that you're not alone and this is not your fault. You have to understand that you did not choose this. It's a societal issue. Diet culture, almond moms, you name it, anything diety. Diet culture is $1 billion industry, and it feeds off the minds of the young and the old. Think about keto, think about this, think about that, think about paleo, think about low carb, low fat. Now, don't get me wrong. There may be a point where some people may need to go on those things. If you get your gallbladder out, the first few days you're probably going to be on a low fat because your gallbladder houses your bile that you need to absorb and digest fat, right? So, if you have chronic heart failure, you may need a lower sodium meal, right? Or meal times, or balanced meals, right? But just low sodium. So, I'm not saying that all diets are bad, but I am saying that the diet culture is $1 billion industry. So it feeds off of everyone, and it's shown on computers and TikTok and billboards and info commercials, right? So you're just always getting that hit with it, and so it's like sometimes it's easy to be like, yeah, I'm just gonna see what it's about, right? Ozempic, for instance, it's helpful for a lot of people, but a lot of people are abusing it the wrong way as well, too, right? Because we have this thin ideal in this country, and our country is not built on thin ideals. It's built on immigrants and the backs of hardworking people. That's what this is, and that's what we should continue to focus on, right? So again, for anyone out there who is struggling, reach out to me. Reach out to Angie. I'm sure Angie can give you my contact information. I have no issues with that. Reach out to a loved one. Reach out to a friend and just say, hey, I'm struggling. Where do I go from here? Can you please help me?
That is so powerful, and that is such a needed message. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Of course, Angie.
Daniel, thank you again for sharing your expertise and your time with us today.
No problem. I'm happy to be here.
If you or someone you know is struggling with food, body image, or mental well-being, please reach out. Recovery is possible, and you are not alone. Resources are linked in our show notes, including the NIDA helpline at 1-800-931-2237 and the crisis text line. Text NIDA to 741-741. This podcast is brought to you by the Nourish Project, a HOSA student-led initiative dedicated to eating disorder recovery awareness, education, and hope. Thank you for listening.